The dark truth of Los Angeles, a city once synonymous with endless possibility and shimmering dreams, now conceals a reality far more unsettling, a labyrinth of dangers that only those who navigate its streets daily truly comprehend. Millions still flock here, drawn by the siren song of a life lived larger, brighter, more vibrant than anywhere else. Yet beneath the sun-drenched facade, a profound decay has taken root. This isn't just about the fading glamour or the broken promises. It's about a systemic unraveling, a relentless tide of urban decay that reshapes lives and shatters illusions. Why did this city, this beacon of aspiration, collapse so fast into such disquieting chaos, revealing a vulnerability that few outsiders ever truly grasp? We are about to pull back the curtain on the definitive, unsettling collection of 10 dangers that Los Angeles' most overlooked witnesses, its taxi drivers, keep revealing. Truths that challenge everything you thought you knew about the City of Angels, and perhaps about every major metropolis. Once, this city pulsed with an almost magical energy, a vibrant tapestry woven from ambition and innovation. We all remember the stories, the iconic images of Hollywood's golden age, the promise of reinvention around every corner, a place where the sun always shone, both literally and figuratively. It was a city where dreams felt tangible, where the future seemed to sparkle, a beacon of hope for countless souls seeking a better life, a place of unparalleled opportunity and cultural richness. The streets themselves seemed to hum with an optimism that was infectious, drawing in artists, entrepreneurs, and dreamers from every corner of the globe, all believing in the unique enchantment of Los Angeles. But then, something shifted. A creeping shadow began to stretch across the landscape, born not of natural disaster, but of unchecked ambition and a growing, insatiable greed. The magic didn't vanish overnight, but slowly, insidiously, it eroded, replaced by a harsh, concrete reality. The very soul of the city, once so effervescent, began to feel heavy, burdened by the weight of its own success, or perhaps its own failures. The pursuit of wealth became a fever, overshadowing the human connection, creating fissures in the very fabric of society. And it is in these fissures that the first, most pervasive danger reveals itself, the invisible lines of rampant inequality. Taxi drivers speak of picking up passengers from opulent Beverly Hills mansions, only to drop them off mere miles away, into tent cities that stretch for blocks, a stark, gut-wrenching contrast that screams of two different worlds coexisting in the same space. They see the designer bags next to the overflowing trash cans, the gleaming luxury cars idling beside makeshift shelters, a daily reminder of a city cleaved in two. One driver, a man named Miguel, who has navigated these streets for 3 decades, recounted picking up a young woman in a sequined gown after a lavish party. She spoke of her worries about a stock portfolio. His next fare, just 15 minutes later, was a father of 3, asking to be taken to a food bank, his face etched with exhaustion and despair. The distance between these lives, he said, felt like a universe, and he traversed it countless times a day. We've all seen the headlines, the statistics, but to witness it through the eyes of those who bridge this chasm for a living, to hear their accounts of the sheer, unyielding disparity, offers a raw, unfiltered perspective. The data backs their observations. Studies show Los Angeles has one of the highest rates of income inequality among major U.S. cities, with the top 1% earning more than 50 times the bottom 20%. This isn't just a statistic, it's a lived, grinding reality, a constant psychological toll on those who cannot escape the daily juxtaposition of extreme wealth and devastating poverty. It's a rupture in the social contract, creating an undercurrent of tension and resentment that simmers just beneath the surface, a constant, unsettling hum in the city's heart. You've felt this too, perhaps in your own communities, that sense of a growing divide, a separation that feels increasingly insurmountable. But wait until you see how this chasm has birthed even darker, more predatory practices, turning the streets into a hunting ground for the vulnerable. Once, Los Angeles was a city where hope arrived on every train and bus, where a new life felt within reach for anyone brave enough to seek it. We all remember the stories of countless individuals who landed with nothing, only to find opportunity, community, and the chance to build a genuine future. There was an unspoken understanding, a collective belief in the city's capacity to embrace and uplift, a sense of shared journey amongst those chasing their own version of the dream. The sheer magic of Hollywood wasn't just in the movies, it was in the everyday resilience of people finding their way, often helped by the kindness of strangers. But as the glittering facade cracked under the weight of growing greed and systemic neglect, that sense of community began to fray. The vulnerability born of economic disparity became a magnet for exploitation, transforming the once welcoming streets into a labyrinth of hidden dangers where the desperate are easily ensnared. This isn't just about street crime, it's about an insidious, almost invisible network of predators preying on the hopes and dreams of those with the least. Taxi drivers traversing every corner of the city become unwilling witnesses to these silent tragedies. They speak of picking up wide-eyed newcomers, clutching worn suitcases, clearly disoriented, only to drop them at dilapidated motels or unfamiliar addresses given by dubious recruiters. One driver, Maria, a kind-faced woman who has driven her cab for 20 years, recalled a young woman from a rural state, barely 18, who spoke excitedly of a modeling contract. Maria felt a cold knot in her stomach when she dropped the girl at a secluded house in the hills, noticing the expensive car already idling in the driveway and the man who emerged, too eager, too smooth. Days later, Maria saw the same girl again, this time looking utterly hollow, her eyes devoid of the earlier spark, being driven by a different, older man. Maria knew, with a crushing certainty, that the dream had become a nightmare. These are not isolated incidents, they are part of a chilling pattern. Law enforcement agencies in Los Angeles report a steady increase in human trafficking cases, often disguised as job opportunities or housing assistance, specifically targeting those arriving with limited resources and profound aspirations. These are the unseen battles fought daily, the quiet betrayals that chip away at the city's soul. The data confirms the surge in deceptive practices, from elaborate housing scams to forced labor rings, all exploiting the burgeoning population of individuals struggling to survive. You felt that pit in your stomach, that sense of unease when something just doesn't feel right, that instinct warning you of hidden malice. Imagine living in that constant state of hyper-awareness, knowing that every new face could be either a victim or a predator. But this invisible exploitation isn't the only shadow stretching across the city. It has paved the way for a more overt, more immediate danger that has transformed the very nature of urban safety, making every journey a gamble. But this invisible exploitation isn't the only shadow stretching across the city. It has paved the way for a more overt, more immediate danger that has transformed the very nature of urban safety, making every journey a gamble. Once, Los Angeles was a city where you could walk its bustling streets with a sense of adventure, not apprehension. We all remember the vibrant nightlife, the spontaneous encounters, the feeling of possibility that permeated even the late hours. There was a time when the city felt like a grand, accessible stage, and its inhabitants, though diverse, moved with a shared sense of safety, a collective trust in the urban landscape. The streetlights offered not just illumination, but a comforting glow, a silent promise of security, inviting exploration rather than caution. But as the city's soul began to fray, as the chasm of inequality deepened and exploitation became rampant, that shared sense of security evaporated. It was replaced by a palpable tension, a new kind of urban danger that defies easy categorization. This isn't just the petty crime of old. It's a more brazen, more unpredictable wave of disorder that has reshaped the very fabric of public safety. The streets, once a symbol of freedom and opportunity, now carry an undercurrent of threat, making every journey, every late-night ride, a calculated risk. Taxi drivers, the nocturnal eyes of the city, are on the front lines of this shift, witnessing the transformation firsthand. Their vigilance a constant, exhausting companion. They speak of an alarming increase in brazen carjackings, seemingly random acts of violence, and the proliferation of makeshift encampments that, while a symptom of profound poverty, often become unintended hubs for illicit activities, making certain areas no-go zones after dark. One driver, a veteran named Frank, who has seen the city through multiple eras, described how he used to feel safe driving anywhere at any hour. Now, he meticulously plans his routes, avoiding certain districts after sundown, his eyes constantly scanning the rearview mirror, every shadow a potential threat. He recounted a terrifying incident where he was stopped at a red light, only to have two masked figures attempt to smash his window, their intent clear and chilling. He narrowly escaped, his heart pounding, a stark reminder that the rules of the road and of personal safety have fundamentally changed. Official police reports confirm a troubling spike in specific categories of violent crime, including aggravated assaults and robberies, often occurring in areas once considered relatively safe, surprising even seasoned officers. The data paints a grim picture of a city struggling to contain a surge in lawlessness that feels both desperate and opportunistic, a continuous battle fought on every block. We've all felt that subtle shift, haven't we? That moment when you instinctively check your surroundings, when the carefree stroll becomes a wary walk, when the sounds of the city at night no longer soothe but sharpen your senses. That underlying anxiety, that question of whether a familiar street still holds the same promise of safety. It's a collective unease, a profound loss of innocence in the urban experience. But the dangers don't stop at the physical. They seep into the psychological, creating a pervasive fear that preys on the minds of those who witness it daily, leaving an indelible mark. And wait until you hear about the silent epidemic that rides shotgun with these drivers every single day. Once, the act of driving a taxi in Los Angeles, though demanding, carried a certain pride, a sense of connection to the city's vibrant pulse. Drivers were often informal storytellers, temporary confidants, navigating not just streets but lives, often ending their shifts with a sense of purpose, having been an integral part of countless personal journeys. There was a camaraderie among them, a shared understanding of the city's rhythm, a feeling of being a vital artery in its beating heart. The challenges were primarily physical. Long hours, traffic, demanding fares, but the mental landscape felt navigable, even rewarding, balanced by the unique interactions and the feeling of freedom on the open road. But as the urban landscape grew more fractured, as the dangers became more prevalent and insidious, the emotional burden on these drivers escalated dramatically. The constant exposure to rampant inequality, the insidious undercurrents of exploitation, and the overt threats of urban crime has taken an immense psychological toll, transforming their once engaging profession into a relentless gauntlet of stress and anxiety. The invisible weight of what they witness, the silent screams they hear, the desperation they ferry, has begun to crush the very spirit of those behind the wheel. The magic of connecting with diverse lives has been overshadowed by the trauma of seeing the city's underbelly up close, day after day, leaving them hollowed out. Taxi drivers report alarmingly high rates of stress-related illnesses, anxiety, and even symptoms akin to post-traumatic stress disorder. They become unwilling therapists, absorbing the city's collective despair, its anger, its fear, all while maintaining a facade of calm professionalism, their own suffering unacknowledged. One driver, a quiet man named David, who once dreamed of becoming a screenwriter, now finds himself unable to write, his mind consumed by the grim narratives he encounters daily. He spoke of a recurring nightmare, a collage of distressed faces and flashing sirens, a constant replay of the city's darkest moments, a relentless loop of urban despair. His colleagues echo similar sentiments, describing sleepless nights, heightened vigilance even off-duty, and a profound sense of disillusionment that seeps into every aspect of their lives. Mental health professionals specializing in occupational stress confirm that professions involving high exposure to urban trauma, like taxi driving, carry a significant risk of developing chronic stress and burnout, often leading to severe mental health challenges. The constant threat, coupled with the emotional labor of interacting with a diverse, often troubled clientele, creates a toxic cocktail for mental well-being, eroding their resilience. It's a silent epidemic, unseen by the passengers, but deeply felt by those who navigate the city's emotional currents, bearing its silent scars. We've all felt that low hum of stress, haven't we? That persistent worry, that feeling of carrying a burden that isn't entirely your own, that gnawing sense of unease. Imagine that feeling amplified, relentless, day in and day out, with no escape. It's a profound empathy we feel for those who bear witness to the city's unraveling, carrying its secrets and its sorrows in their own hearts. You understand the weight of unspoken burdens, the toll that constant exposure to hardship can take. But this psychological strain isn't just internal, it manifests in the very environment, eroding the trust between people and paving the way for a more fundamental breakdown in societal cohesion. And wait until you learn how this erosion of trust is enabling a sophisticated network of deception and fraud, targeting the very lifelines of the city, turning simple transactions into elaborate traps. Once, Los Angeles was a place where enterprising individuals built empires on ingenuity and honest dealings. We all remember the stories of businesses blossoming from a handshake and a promise, where the word of a person was their bond, and the city's vibrant economy thrived on a bedrock of mutual trust. Even in a bustling metropolis, there was a fundamental expectation of fair play in transactions, a belief that commerce, however competitive, operated within clear, ethical boundaries. The sheer magic of ambition was that it felt achievable through legitimate means, through hard work and a commitment to integrity. The city's dynamism was matched by a certain straightforwardness in its economic interactions, a sense that while you might face challenges, you wouldn't necessarily be deliberately deceived. This was the era when the streets felt less like a maze of potential traps and more like pathways to genuine opportunity, where every exchange, from a simple purchase to a complex deal, carried an implicit understanding of good faith. But as the city's social fabric frayed, as the chasm of inequality deepened and desperation became a prevailing force, the erosion of trust paved the way for a far more insidious threat: sophisticated networks of deception and fraud. This isn't the crude con of yesteryear, the easily spotted trick. It's a meticulously crafted web designed to ensnare the unsuspecting, turning even the most mundane transactions into elaborate traps. The very lifelines of the city, its digital payment systems, its online marketplaces, its service industries, have become targets, transforming the urban landscape into a minefield of hidden perils. Taxi drivers, privy to countless financial exchanges and human interactions, are often the first to sense these subtle, dangerous shifts, witnessing the quiet unraveling of integrity in real time. They speak of an alarming rise in passengers attempting to pay with cloned or fraudulent credit cards, or elaborate schemes to shortchange them with counterfeit bills that are almost impossible to detect. More disturbingly, they observe passengers being manipulated by unseen forces, directed to specific, often isolated ATMs for suspicious withdrawals, or handed sealed packages for delivery with an urgency that screams of illicit contents, becoming unwitting pawns in larger, more complex criminal enterprises. One driver, a sharp-eyed woman named Elena, who has navigated the city's nightscapes for over 15 years, recounted a series of late-night fares where well-dressed individuals would insist on stopping at obscure, standalone ATMs in dimly lit parking lots before reaching their final destination, making unusually large cash withdrawals. She later heard news reports of a sophisticated skimming operation targeting those very machines, realizing her passengers were likely either victims, their accounts compromised, or perhaps even mules, caught in a financial snare that extended far beyond their understanding. The sheer audacity and technical sophistication of these operations are startling, a testament to a new breed of criminal mind that thrives on exploiting vulnerabilities and a diminished sense of public trust. Official reports from the Los Angeles Police Department and federal agencies highlight a significant surge in financial crimes, including credit card fraud, identity theft, and elaborate online scams, often orchestrated by highly organized transnational groups. These criminal syndicates exploit the city's vast, transient population, its burgeoning digital infrastructure, and the anonymity of its sprawling urban environment, creating a pervasive sense of vulnerability for residents and visitors alike. Data from major financial institutions and consumer protection agencies shows that Los Angeles consistently ranks among the top cities for reported cases of sophisticated fraud, with losses amounting to hundreds of millions of dollars annually, draining resources and shattering lives. This isn't just about individual bad actors. It's a systemic challenge to the city's economic stability, a constant, unseen battle against enemies who weaponize trust itself, eroding the very foundations of commerce and daily life. Experts in cybersecurity and financial forensics confirm that these networks are increasingly advanced, leveraging technology to create almost undetectable deceptions, making it harder than ever for ordinary citizens to protect themselves. The city, once a symbol of innovation, now grapples with its dark reflection: innovation used for exploitation. You've felt that flicker of doubt, haven't you? That unsettling moment when an offer seems just a little too good to be true, or a transaction feels slightly off. A subtle alarm bell ringing deep in your gut. That nagging suspicion that someone might be trying to pull a fast one, to take advantage of your good faith or your momentary lapse of attention. Imagine living in a city where that feeling is a constant companion, where every interaction, every tap of a card, every online purchase carries the potential for betrayal, where the very act of commerce feels tainted by an invisible threat. It's a profound loss of innocence in how we engage with the world, a constant vigilance against the unseen hand that seeks to profit from our trust. We've all been there, questioning the authenticity, wondering if we're being played. This is the daily reality for countless Angelenos, and especially for those like taxi drivers who facilitate these transactions constantly, becoming unwitting participants in a citywide drama of deception. But this erosion of trust isn't confined to financial transactions or the digital realm. It extends its tendrils into the very physical infrastructure of the city, creating a new kind of chaos that operates in the shadows, making even the most familiar routes a labyrinth of hidden perils, even for those who know its streets intimately. And wait until you hear how this structural decay, both literal and figurative, is directly impacting the safety and daily survival of its most vulnerable citizens, leading to a breakdown in what were once considered fundamental urban services. And wait until you learn how this structural decay, both literal and figurative, is directly impacting the safety and daily survival of its most vulnerable citizens, leading to a breakdown in what were once considered fundamental urban services. Once, Los Angeles boasted a robust public infrastructure, a testament to civic pride and meticulous planning. We all remember the well-maintained roads, the reliable public transport, the streetlights that consistently cast a comforting glow, and the public spaces that felt cared for, a fundamental promise of a functioning metropolis. There was an unspoken understanding that the city's bones, its essential services, were solid, dependable, allowing life to flow smoothly, fostering a sense of order and collective well-being. The sheer magic of a sprawling city operating efficiently, connecting millions, felt like a modern marvel, a foundation upon which dreams could truly be built, ensuring that even the most vulnerable had access to basic necessities and safe passage. But over time, a creeping neglect, born of shifting priorities and perhaps a deeper, almost invisible form of greed, began to eat away at that foundation. The magic of smooth transit and consistent services faded, replaced by a slow, insidious decay that now directly impacts the safety and daily survival of its most vulnerable citizens. This isn't just about potholes. It's about a systemic breakdown in what were once considered fundamental urban services, creating a new layer of danger for everyone, especially those reliant on public systems. Taxi drivers, navigating every single block, are the unwilling cartographers of this decline, their daily routes a stark map of what has been lost. They speak of roads riddled with craters that damage vehicles and cause accidents, of entire stretches of neighborhoods plunged into darkness due to broken streetlights, creating perfect canvases for illicit activities. They witness public transport systems struggling to cope, leading to overcrowded, unsafe conditions, and emergency services stretched so thin that response times become a terrifying gamble. One driver, a thoughtful man named Carlos, who has driven for over 2 decades, described how he used to take pride in the city's thoroughfares. Now, he feels a sense of dread, having seen multiple minor accidents caused by neglected infrastructure, and recounts a harrowing night when he witnessed a violent assault unfold in a pitch-black alley, a direct consequence of a streetlight that had been out for weeks. The data supports these observations. Reports from the Department of Transportation consistently highlight a growing backlog of infrastructure repairs, while studies on urban resilience point to Los Angeles's public services being increasingly strained, particularly in underserved communities. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's a profound rupture in the social contract, a constant low-level threat that makes every journey, every simple act of living, a little more perilous, especially for those without the means to escape it. You've felt that frustration, haven't you? That slow burn of anger when essential services fail, when the basic promises of a city go unfulfilled, when you question whether anyone is truly watching out for the collective good. Imagine that feeling amplified, becoming a daily, life-threatening reality. But this decay of public services doesn't just create physical dangers, it creates fertile ground for something even more insidious: the rise of unregulated shadow economies, turning once familiar spaces into unpredictable, dangerous zones that operate beyond the law. The decay of public services and the widening chasm of inequality have indeed created fertile ground for something even more insidious: the rise of unregulated shadow economies, turning once familiar spaces into unpredictable, dangerous zones that operate beyond the law. Once, Los Angeles, for all its wild ambition, had a clear, albeit sometimes blurred, line between legitimate commerce and the fringes. We all remember the bustling markets and vibrant street vendors operating within a general framework of civic order, where even the most unconventional enterprises had a certain, almost magical place in the city's regulated ecosystem. There was a sense that most transactions, most activities, occurred under the watchful eye of authorities, providing a baseline of safety and accountability, a collective trust in the city's ability to maintain order. But as the city's soul began to fray, as official services declined and desperation mounted, that sense of regulated order gave way to a darker, more chaotic reality. The magic of structured commerce vanished, replaced by a proliferation of unregulated, often dangerous shadow economies that exploit every vulnerability. This isn't just about petty street vendors. It's about a sprawling network of illicit activities that thrive in the shadows, creating new, unpredictable dangers for residents and visitors alike. Taxi drivers, witnessing the city's underbelly up close, are often the unwilling navigators of these hidden landscapes. They speak of picking up passengers from pop-up gambling dens operating in abandoned warehouses, or dropping off individuals at makeshift, unlicensed clinics offering dubious medical procedures, often with alarming frequency. More chillingly, they observe the proliferation of open-air drug markets that operate with brazen impunity in certain districts, transforming once residential streets into zones of profound risk where the desperate and the predatory collide. One driver, a stoic man named Jorge, who has driven for over 30 years, recounted being flagged down by a frantic young woman outside a nondescript building, begging to be taken to a hospital after a back alley procedure went horribly wrong. He saw the fear in her eyes, the desperation that drove her to such a place, and felt the chilling reality of a city where the unregulated thrive on the desperation of others. He also spoke of witnessing transactions involving stolen goods and counterfeit products happening openly on street corners, a clear sign that the lines of law and order have become dangerously blurred. Official reports from law enforcement agencies confirm a significant increase in illegal street vending of potentially dangerous goods, the rise of unregulated pop-up businesses that skirt health and safety regulations, and a noticeable expansion of territories controlled by organized crime groups dealing in illicit substances. This isn't just a matter of petty crime. It's a systemic challenge to public health and safety, a constant, unseen battle against forces that operate beyond the reach of conventional law, preying on the very fabric of society. Experts in urban sociology confirm that when official systems fail, informal, often illicit, systems fill the void, creating a parallel economy that is inherently unstable and dangerous. You felt that unease, haven't you? That subtle shift when you enter a new area and something just feels off, unregulated, a sense of danger lurking beneath the surface, a feeling that the rules you understand no longer apply. Imagine living in a city where those zones are expanding, where the familiar gives way to the unknown, and where every corner could hide a new, unforeseen threat. But these shadow economies aren't just about illicit goods and services. They are deeply intertwined with a darker, more pervasive issue: the rise of environmental degradation and public health crises that are silently poisoning the city from within, affecting everyone, but disproportionately harming the most vulnerable. The decay of public services and the widening chasm of inequality have indeed created fertile ground for something even more insidious: the rise of unregulated shadow economies, turning once familiar spaces into unpredictable, dangerous zones that operate beyond the law. Once, Los Angeles, for all its wild ambition, had a clear, albeit sometimes blurred, line between legitimate commerce and the fringes. We all remember the bustling markets and vibrant street vendors operating within a general framework of civic order, where even the most unconventional enterprises had a certain, almost magical, place in the city's regulated ecosystem. There was a sense that most transactions, most activities, occurred under the watchful eye of authorities, providing a baseline of safety and accountability, a collective trust in the city's ability to maintain order. But as the city's soul began to fray, as official services declined and desperation mounted, that sense of regulated order gave way to a darker, more chaotic reality. The magic of structured commerce vanished, replaced by a proliferation of unregulated, often dangerous, shadow economies that exploit every vulnerability. This isn't just about petty street vendors. It's about a sprawling network of illicit activities that thrive in the shadows, creating new, unpredictable dangers for residents and visitors alike. Taxi drivers, witnessing the city's underbelly up close, are often the unwilling navigators of these hidden landscapes. They speak of picking up passengers from pop-up gambling dens operating in abandoned warehouses, or dropping off individuals at makeshift, unlicensed clinics offering dubious medical procedures, often with alarming frequency. More chillingly, they observe the proliferation of open-air drug markets that operate with brazen impunity in certain districts, transforming once residential streets into zones of profound risk where the desperate and the predatory collide. One driver, a stoic man named Jorge, who has driven for over 30 years, recounted being flagged down by a frantic young woman outside a nondescript building, begging to be taken to a hospital after a back alley procedure went horribly wrong. He saw the fear in her eyes, the desperation that drove her to such a place, and felt the chilling reality of a city where the unregulated thrive on the desperation of others. He also spoke of witnessing transactions involving stolen goods and counterfeit products happening openly on street corners, a clear sign that the lines of law and order have become dangerously blurred. Official reports from law enforcement agencies confirm a significant increase in illegal street vending of potentially dangerous goods, the rise of unregulated pop-up businesses that skirt health and safety regulations, and a noticeable expansion of territories controlled by organized crime groups dealing in illicit substances. This isn't just a matter of petty crime. It's a systemic challenge to public health and safety, a constant, unseen battle against forces that operate beyond the reach of conventional law, preying on the very fabric of society. Experts in urban sociology confirm that when official systems fail, informal, often illicit, systems fill the void, creating a parallel economy that is inherently unstable and dangerous. You felt that unease, haven't you? That subtle shift when you enter a new area and something just feels off, unregulated, a sense of danger lurking beneath the surface, a feeling that the rules you understand no longer apply. Imagine living in a city where those zones are expanding, where the familiar gives way to the unknown, and where every corner could hide a new, unforeseen threat. But these shadow economies aren't just about illicit goods and services. They are deeply intertwined with a darker, more pervasive issue: the rise of environmental degradation and public health crises that are silently poisoning the city from within, affecting everyone but disproportionately harming the most vulnerable. Once, Los Angeles was famed for its golden beaches and pristine air, a natural paradise where the scent of jasmine mingled with the fresh ocean breeze. We all remember the postcards, the vision of a city blessed by nature, where outdoor life was an integral part of its allure, promising health and vitality. But the relentless march of unchecked development, fueled by an almost insatiable greed for expansion, has slowly suffocated that natural beauty. The magic of a healthy environment faded, replaced by smog, pollution, and a creeping toxicity that silently poisons the city from within. Taxi drivers, breathing the city's air for countless hours, are on the front lines of this invisible assault. They speak of days when the air is so thick with particulate matter that it stings their eyes and burns their throats, and of seeing a disturbing increase in respiratory illnesses among their colleagues and passengers, especially children. They navigate areas where overflowing homeless encampments contribute to sanitation crises, and where industrial runoff visibly pollutes waterways, turning once vibrant ecosystems into toxic zones. One driver, a former surfer named Tony who grew up near the coast, now recoils from the very beaches he once loved, citing the constant advisories against swimming due to bacterial contamination after heavy rains. He recounted picking up a family whose child was struggling to breathe during a particularly bad smog alert, a stark reminder that the city's beauty now comes with a grave cost. Official reports from the Environmental Protection Agency and local health departments consistently rank Los Angeles among the cities with the worst air quality in the nation, with alarming levels of ozone and fine particulate matter. Studies link this pollution directly to elevated rates of asthma, heart disease, and other chronic illnesses, disproportionately affecting low-income communities situated near freeways and industrial zones. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a silent, pervasive killer, a constant threat to the well-being of millions, eroding the very foundation of healthy life. You've felt that tightness in your chest, haven't you? That moment when the air feels heavy, when the promise of a clear sky is replaced by a hazy, oppressive pall, and you question the very air you breathe. Imagine that feeling becoming a daily reality, a constant battle for health in your own home. But this environmental decay is merely a symptom of a deeper, more corrosive illness plaguing the city, a systemic failure of leadership and accountability that allows these dangers to flourish unchecked. And wait until you discover how deeply entrenched this corruption truly is, turning the very mechanisms meant to protect the public into tools of neglect. Once, Los Angeles prided itself on its civic spirit, a belief that its leaders, however flawed, ultimately worked for the greater good of its diverse populace. We all remember the grand plans, the promises of progress, the sense that despite its vastness, the city was guided by a collective vision, striving for a better future for all. There was an expectation of transparency, a trust that public funds served public interests, and that accountability, though sometimes slow, would eventually prevail. But beneath the veneer of civic ambition, a darker current of self-interest and moral decay began to fester. The magic of public service faded, replaced by a cynical pursuit of power and profit, with decisions often made behind closed doors, benefiting a select few at the expense of the many. Taxi drivers, privy to countless conversations and witnessing the consequences of policy firsthand, become unwilling chroniclers of this systemic rot. They speak of seeing luxury developments approved in environmentally sensitive areas, while essential services in struggling neighborhoods are neglected. They observe the blatant disregard for regulations, the selective enforcement of laws, and the growing chasm between the rhetoric of public officials and the grim reality on the streets. One driver, a former community activist named Ricardo, who once believed in the power of local government, now expresses profound disillusionment. He recounted overhearing conversations in his cab about backroom deals and campaign donations influencing zoning decisions, and seeing the direct result: once thriving local businesses displaced for projects that benefit only large corporations, leaving communities fractured. He spoke of the quiet anger and resignation among residents who feel their voices are unheard, their concerns dismissed by an unresponsive bureaucracy. Official investigations and news reports have repeatedly exposed instances of public corruption, from bribery scandals involving city council members to dubious contracts awarded to politically connected firms, leading to public outcry and a profound erosion of trust in governance. Data from watchdog organizations consistently ranks Los Angeles high in terms of perceived corruption and lack of transparency in local government, with public trust steadily declining. This isn't just a political issue. It's a fundamental betrayal of the public contract, a constant, insidious force that undermines every attempt at progress and perpetuates the cycle of urban decay. You've felt that frustration, haven't you? That gnawing sense of helplessness when decisions are made seemingly against the public interest, when promises are broken and you question who truly benefits from the system. Imagine that feeling amplified, seeing the direct negative impact on your community every single day. But this political and systemic decay is not merely abstract. It has a very tangible, immediate consequence, fostering a deep-seated psychological shift in the city's inhabitants, a dangerous desensitization to the very perils that surround them. And wait until you see how this erosion of empathy and vigilance is creating an even more fertile ground for danger to thrive. Once, Los Angeles was a city of dreamers, where every individual held a vibrant hope and an acute awareness of their surroundings, eager to engage with the world around them. We all remember the open curiosity, the willingness to connect, the shared sense of wonder that defined the city's unique spirit, making it a place where diverse lives intersected with genuine interest. There was a freshness, a collective energy that encouraged participation and interaction, an underlying belief in the power of human connection. But as the layers of urban decay, inequality, exploitation, crime, and systemic neglect accumulated, a profound and disturbing psychological shift began to take hold. The magic of vibrant engagement faded, replaced by a pervasive desensitization, a chilling normalization of the abnormal, where residents learned to simply look away. Taxi drivers, observing the city's pulse from behind the wheel, are uniquely positioned to witness this erosion of collective empathy. They speak of seeing people walk past harrowing scenes of homelessness and distress without a flicker of emotion, their faces blank, their gazes fixed forward. They recount incidents of minor accidents or public altercations where passers-by simply film with their phones rather than offer aid. A chilling detachment that speaks volumes about a city hardened by constant exposure to hardship. One driver, a thoughtful woman named Sarah, who moved to Los Angeles seeking its vibrant community, now feels a profound sadness at the growing indifference. She described picking up a passenger who complained about the smell of a nearby encampment, completely oblivious to the human suffering just feet away, a clear sign of a protective emotional barrier erected against overwhelming reality. She also observed the increasing reluctance of people to intervene or even acknowledge strangers in distress, a stark contrast to the city's past. Psychological studies on urban dwellers in high-stress environments confirm a phenomenon known as compassion fatigue or bystander effect, where individuals, overwhelmed by constant exposure to suffering, develop coping mechanisms that involve emotional detachment and a reduced willingness to help. This isn't just a personal failing, it's a collective defense mechanism, a profound loss of shared humanity that makes the city feel colder, more isolated, and ultimately more dangerous as the bonds of mutual care fray. You've felt that pull, haven't you? That internal conflict between wanting to help and feeling overwhelmed. That moment when you force yourself to look away, just to cope with the sheer scale of suffering around you. Imagine that becoming your default state, a necessary shield in a city that demands constant emotional fortification.
But this desensitization is not the end of the story. It's a precursor to the ultimate danger, the final fracture in the city's soul, the erosion of community spirit itself, and the terrifying prospect of a city where collective action becomes impossible. And wait until you understand the true cost of losing that vital sense of togetherness, a loss that could condemn Los Angeles to an irreversible fate. Once, the diverse neighborhoods of Los Angeles were vibrant hubs of community, woven together by shared experiences, local traditions, and a collective belief in the power of unity. We all remember the block parties, the neighborhood watch groups, the impromptu acts of kindness, the feeling that even in a vast city, you belonged, part of a larger, supportive tapestry. There was a sense of shared responsibility, a magical understanding that together challenges could be overcome, fostering resilience and hope.
But as the city's soul became fractured, as inequality, exploitation, crime, systemic neglect, environmental decay, and widespread desensitization took their toll, the very bedrock of community began to crumble. The magic of collective spirit faded, replaced by isolation, distrust, and a chilling inability to come together, even in the face of shared threats. Taxi drivers, witnessing the ebb and flow of human interaction across every district, are the unwilling historians of this profound decline. They speak of once thriving local businesses closing, replaced by anonymous chains, and of public spaces, once bustling with families and friends, now feeling empty or worse, unsafe. They recount the increasing difficulty in rallying residents for common causes, the pervasive sense of every man for himself, even when facing issues that affect everyone. One driver, a wise elder named Samuel, who has lived and worked in Los Angeles for over 50 years, laments the loss of the village spirit. He described how neighbors used to look out for each other, how local problems were tackled by collective effort, and how a simple wave or greeting could forge a bond. Now he sees people actively avoiding eye contact, retreating into their private worlds, even as the city around them visibly deteriorates. He spoke of a deep-seated fear of engagement, a reluctance to trust, and a pervasive sense that individual efforts are futile against overwhelming odds. Sociological studies on urban fragmentation confirm a significant decline in social capital and civic engagement in large metropolises, correlating directly with rising inequality and perceived public safety issues. Data from community organizations shows a marked decrease in volunteerism and participation in local initiatives, indicating a profound loss of the collective will to improve the city. This isn't just a social trend, it's the ultimate danger, the final fracture, a city losing its ability to heal itself, its residents too fragmented to stand together, leaving it vulnerable to every single one of the dangers we have explored. This is the true tragedy of Los Angeles, a city that once promised everything, now grappling with the cost of losing its very soul. But is there still hope for resurrection? Or is this the irreversible fate of a dream turned nightmare? The sun sets over the sprawling metropolis, casting long, mournful shadows across its familiar skyline. Empty tables, empty streets, empty dreams. The once vibrant hum of ambition now feels like a distant echo, replaced by a quiet, almost melancholic sigh. We have traversed the hidden pathways of its decline, guided by the unseen witnesses, the taxi drivers who carry the city's secrets in their rearview mirrors. They have revealed a Los Angeles stripped bare, a place where the pursuit of success has paved over the very heart of human connection, where the magic of possibility has been overshadowed by the harsh realities of neglect, exploitation, and a profound loss of collective spirit. The city, once a golden beacon, now stands as a stark testament to the insidious power of unchecked greed and indifference, a place where the lines between paradise and peril have blurred beyond recognition. Yet, even in the deepest shadows, a flicker of light remains. Perhaps there's still hope for this magnificent, broken city, a city glowing in silence, waiting to be remembered for what it once was and what it could still be. We saw it happen,
the slow, agonizing transformation, the gradual erosion of its soul. But understanding is the first step towards healing, towards rebuilding the bridges of trust and community that have crumbled. It's time we remember what it used to mean to dream,